The material contained in the Diverging Clear podcast is for informational purposes only. The ideas and opinions expressed in the podcast does not represent the views or missions of the National Rail Passenger Corporation or Amtrak or the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission. This is a Diverging Clear podcast.
Approach Diverging, milepost 20.04. Diverging Clear, milepost 20.06. Welcome to Diverging Clear, your transportation podcast, with your hosts William Moore and Jemayne Walker.
And welcome to the Diverging Clear podcast, today's bonus episode. Today I'm joined by my co-host Jemayne Walker. This brother's been busy, ain't seen him in a couple dozen episodes, just joking. But it's great to have you on the other side of the camera here, brother. How are you doing today?
Well, man, I'm good. And yourself, man? Yeah, it's been a minute. A lot has been going on. But I've been hearing your episodes, man, and let me tell you, man, it feels great to be back on here. We got some good stuff that we definitely want to cover, man. Yeah, I can't wait to dive back in, man. It's like new life today, baby. New life.
That sounds good, man. As I said, it's great to have you back. Looking forward to our, this is kind of our prequel to going into season 2. So, let's go ahead and knock out this episode. Let's go ahead and drop some knowledge and some facts and some very educated opinions and theories, and let's see what we can do with this episode today. So today our episode is going to kind of be off of the cuff, just for the people that's listening. Off the cuff discussions about current news of railroading, transportation, and logistics. We'll bring up a topic and discuss we're going to go about 5 minutes on the first 4 topics. We're going to try to keep this moving and keep it interesting. So about 5 minutes for the first and that's all together between me and Jemayne. We'll both speak for about 2.5 minutes on each topic, and then we'll keep it moving. So with that being said, let me go ahead and get our timer set up so we can stay on point. And we'll hit this first topic. So here we go. Our first topic is going to be the recent announcement of the CPS, Canadian Pacific, and KCS merger. This has been, to say the least, one of the most dramatic field announcements with everything going on with this. I mean, besides the CN meddling and the things that's happened with there, just your thoughts on this process moving forward.
I like something that you said a while back, man, as the railroads merge or something like that, man. I thought it was hilarious, man. It's funny because at the beginning, it was originally CP and KCS, and they had, they were roasting marshmallows around the campfire and singing each other's praises. And then all of a sudden, Canadian National stepped in and said, I'm gonna try and break up this happy home. We all knew, and people even out in the industry could tell you that Canadian National had no shot of this happening for them favorably. It just, from a regulatory standpoint, it didn't look good from them to begin with. And even on the inside, they had people telling them, hey, this ain't gonna work. We should really pull out. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. And then the STB, which they even kind of signaled for a while that, this ain't going to happen, officially told them, it's not going to happen. So what they do, KCS went back knocking on the door to CP, or if you want to say they mutually agreed, hey, we're going to do this and that, okay, you could go that way. But now where they at? As of yesterday, they officially filed to the STB about their new merger. And they have, I think it's in a 10-month review process now. And personally, I think this is going to go through it. They looked favorably, the STB looked favorably on this the first time. So I don't see there being a problem this time. And they still combined are going to be the smallest class 1 railroad. So it's I think it's a win for the customers that are going to be serviced by CP and the KCS merger. And I do think it's a win for the industry as well.
That's a great observation there. The one thing that they got to change the name. CP KCS. I'm just sorry. That's just a rail fan of me. That name is terrible. But besides all that, just joking about it. But the merits of what you were talking about is what I call it as the railroads merge, was this had the makings of a soap opera. Mm-hmm. It was, I mean, it looked like it was a good marriage. Like, I'm old school. Grew up watching All My Children. It was like Erica Kane and whoever it was, the numerous men in Pine Valley that she married, they were getting to the altar, and then all of a sudden a guy from the 1970s reappeared that everybody thought was died, and then came in and interrupt the marriage. That's the role that the CN played in this entire thing. It didn't make sense. It didn't make sense at all, just from a logistical and a regulatory standpoint. When you get down in the New Orleans area, there was too much redundancy there between the KCS and the CN. That's why it wasn't going to work. That's why the regulators was not going to turn all that area over to the CN. That's why it was a bad play on the CN's part. Now, granted, the CN wanted to get to Mexico to, kind of trump what the CP was attempting to do, but it just did not make sense. It just didn't. CN did not need that. They already reached the Gulf Coast via New Orleans. Via their acquisition with the IC. So to me, it just seemed like they were just more so trying to be a spoiler to CP's expansion. And it was nothing more than that we don't want them to have it, so we'll take it. I've seen that happen before in basketball recruiting, where one school will recruit a player because they're bigger, just so that the other school can't have them. And that was sort of kind of what it looks like the CN motivations were from the jump. It wasn't about it actually doing something beneficial. It was just to keep the CP from getting. And as a result of that, there's starting to be a proxy fight. I think it's going to be a lot of big shakeup at the CN, because this was misguided, and it just never really saw the light, was going to see the light of day. So, with that being said, it just don't seem like that was going to ever work. So give it to the STB. They did their job to quality. There was a lot of opposition in Congress and, Congress people, and they shut it down. And then I think this will have a good chance of getting approved. The way it's set up, the way that the synergies that'll be created, I think this will go and continue to be at some point be approved here within the next 10 months.
I agree, man. And you're really dating yourself with the analogy you use, but it's all good, man. I have no problem with that, man. And those analogies are appreciated. You should.
Roger that. I appreciate that. I'm just glad somebody else know what the heck I was talking about. All right, so we'll move on to topic number 2: expansion of the Amtrak Intercity network with the possible Nashville Hub to link Chicago to Atlanta. What are your thoughts on that, my brother?
I think this would be a great victory for Amtrak if they can get some corridors. I know there's been a lot of talk of Atlanta to like Atlanta to Charlotte, or North Carolina to Georgia, and a few others. And this would be a great victory, not just for Amtrak, but but the people that ride in between certain cities and right now don't have many options. You look at what's a good location where people don't have many options. You like, I want to say like down in Texas, like between Texas and Louisiana. You know, just you either drive, you either take the bus, or you fly. And I think it's you know, beyond time that, you know, money came into Amtrak for expansion. You look at ambitious projects like the bullet train for Texas, eventually supposed to go from Dallas Fort Worth to Houston, take a 5-hour drive and make it what, 2.5, 3 hours. That's an ambitious project, and I think it's beyond time we started thinking outside the box, or at least started thinking about the future of rail travel. And so it's honestly beyond time, and we really have to get more people in a position who are thinking of the future when it comes to rail expansion on corridors that don't even exist right now. Your biggest problem, infrastructure wise at least, is you got to deal with the freight railroads off the Northeast corridor, of course, and working out deals with them. But if anything, Virginia has showed you how to work with like CSX and the like. So I think that's a good blueprint to kind of look at as a starting point to start getting some of these corridors built, along with having the funding and some backing by the people in DC, if you will.
Yeah, I totally agree. Those are very valid points, and that's the Virginia CSX partnership or sort of agreement. I think that's the framework that needs to be done, because what Virginia and CSX is, one thing that I'll say about what PSR has done for CSX in regards to helping passenger service is that what they've been doing is shedding a lot of their corridors that aren't and particularly freight heavy, but they would be very essential in moving people. And so when you look at that, you're kind of giving you're giving the states the ability to acquire capacity that's already there and upgraded. And so that's going to be crucial. Like if, in particular, I believe CSX and NS are going to be crucial if we ever want to get from Chicago to Nashville via train. That's going to be very important. And Nashville is a growing area, and the kind of disconjointed way that you have to go from Chicago to Atlanta via train, it doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense at all that it's taking us to the second decade in the 21st century to even figure out that these connections are not. They aren't people friendly, people mover friendly. They're not. It makes no sense that we don't have a direct train from Chicago to Atlanta or Chicago to Miami. You have to go Chicago to the East Coast, then catch another train, East Coast back to Atlanta, or go Chicago to New Orleans, then backtrack. It should not be that difficult to catch a train from Chicago to Atlanta or Chicago to Miami or Chicago to Jacksonville. And when you get towards Texas is even worse because you have numerous underserved areas. Like, and you do have the Texas Eagle that operates down there. You have the Sunset Limited that operates down there. You have the Heartland Flyer that operates down there. But in the grand scheme of things, those are daily services, once a day.
Right.
Texas has a huge population. Those markets should be being exposed. But because of the lack of investment in Amtrak over the past, now that they've made their 50th anniversary, over the past 50 years, it's blatantly clear as to why our national passenger network is kind of the laughing stock of the world. Mm-hmm. You know, we're operating in a mindset. We've been operating in a mindset of basically pretty much how it was right after the airline industry took off. Yeah. We've had no major plans, policies to actually drive this, to drive our passenger service. it's kind of laughable, but I like what Amtrak is doing. The team that they do have in place, and I'm not just saying this because I work there, but the team that they do have in place, they are a good forward looking group of managers and executives that's looking to expand its network and expand it the right way. Expand it in the areas that are underserved, expand it in the areas that need that connectivity, because there's a lot of places still. I'll go back to the analogy again of we're in the second decade of the 21st century, and there's a lot of places that's disconnected from the rest of the country. Mm-hmm. It makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. We have the ability to do it. We just haven't done it. And I'm hoping that within the next couple of years, we can start making some headway, because if we don't, it'd be one great lost opportunity, and it's gonna, the citizens of America are gonna suffer.
Yeah. I look at my own state, Maryland, and the relationship they have with, the MARC commuter trains running on CSX tracks and things like that. And I'm like, it takes cooperation, like where they're going to expand the Howard Street Tunnel, dig under to make it, be able to carry the piggybacks, containers, you know what I mean, to correct the height issue that stops them from carrying, more freight. And it's that the cooperation with the state to get better MARC train schedules and more frequency of trains is, you're going to have to invest in their infrastructure to get gauntlet tracks if you want that, or to get higher platforms and things like that. To crossover in Virginia, which is, the eventual idea that they want to test out, because VRE can't come into Maryland as far as servicing their stations because of their equipment. Their equipment is only for low platforms. So, but nonetheless, I say that to say that you have to have that cooperation from the state level that wants to buy in. So, okay, this is what I need. I need to work with CSX. I need to work with Norfolk Southern. Those freight partners, you got to really get them to buy in, and you have to really come to them with an investment package that's worth them listening to as well. So, I mean, that's just what it takes. Everybody not going to get what they want, but if you want to do that on behalf of your passengers in your state, that's screaming for this, more service, more trains, that sort of thing. You have to be willing to invest in that railroad's infrastructure, to be able to, money talks. I mean, we know that.
That's absolutely correct.
And I know you can't throw money at everything, but I mean, you're going to have to invest in that infrastructure, say, hey man, put aside in here, we'll pay for that. Like it's just, you're going to have to cough up the money and the ideas to them for them to want to, look at you, take you seriously. I mean, that's just what that's just what it is, man.
Right. No, agreed. That's a very, very excellent point. But like I said, the big thing is going to be just moving forward is the execution of this, because we have capacity. Some areas needs more capacity, but it can work. It can work, and I think this expansion is going to be crucial, because I don't think for people in the transportation industry, we understand investment in transportation dollars creates all kind of economic opportunities. We know this, but it's not sold that way. And it's always sold as America is the only country in the world that thinks that their passenger service has to make money in order for it to be viable. Mm-hmm. Everywhere else understands that it requires subsidy. And without going in too deep into that, we subsidize everything else except passenger service. Right. Everything else, you have to break. In America, you have to break even. You have to do this. You have to turn a profit. But everywhere else in the world, they've understood that the value that it brings is not captured in the pocketbooks of the company. It's captured in the pocketbooks of the communities that they serve. Yeah. And I think if we can shift that we need to shift that perspective from that or to that, to understand that the investment here follows or allows for return on investment here.
Right.
And that needs to be sold, and that needs to be, and the people that's putting up the fight, they know this, but we do a terrible job of messaging, and that's why for the last 50 years they've been able to get away with this. But hopefully I'm hopeful that we'll get that part of the argument, maybe be able to get that argument out there that investment in one form of it returns it in a different form, and make it simple so that everybody, I mean, most people see it, but we have to counteract a lot of this, a lot of the negative press, because the people that speak the loudest ain't always right, but they damn sure get the camera time. Yeah, and so, that's just the one thing that we got to fight. But I know we stay on this topic a little bit longer, but hey, it's our show, so the hell with it. We can do that.
We could keep our fingers crossed,
Yeah, I mean? So we'll see what happens. So let's move on to the next topic, because it also kind of touches on what you were just talking about, like the expansion to get double stacks to be able to finally get in and out of the Port of Baltimore. Mm-hmm. I'll just give you a caveat from when I worked at 59th Street here in Chicago with the CSX. We used to build the Baltimore train every day. And the funny thing about the Baltimore section of this train, it was all low levels. It was never double stacked. And so you're literally halving your capabilities of moving containers in and out of this, in and out of the Port of Baltimore. Very, very good, very beautiful facility, but the access is terrible because you couldn't get double stack containers in and out of there. So topic number 3 we'll be hitting on now will be the supply chain woes that we've been seeing since basically for going almost 2 years now, because this started to rear its ugly head at the beginning of the pandemic, and it has not eased at all. So topic number 3, we'll start with the supply chain woes and the impact it has had on the railroads. What are your thoughts on that?
California, you ask yourself, how can California mess up the supply chain a little bit? But I mean, when you look at the amount of cargo ships that are stuck out there or trying to get imported, and then you top that off with, okay, are there enough employees to get this stuff off the ships or get stuff on the ships? It's amazing, but people think, oh man, it doesn't affect the railroad. Well, yeah, it does. It's a big trickle down effect. It affects the railroad. It impacts the railroad.
I would call it more of a waterfall effect than a trickle down.
Okay, yeah. See, I was trying to, a little benefit of the doubt in there a little bit, but yeah, you could definitely go that way with it. But the way, one of the ways a lot of people may not think of is the impact of railroad is you may see a long intermodal train with nothing on it, because it wasn't, because that window is tight to get those loaded on the trains and then shipped to places like Chicago or I think CSX now has a facility down in the South. I'm flubbing on it right now, so forgive me. But I mean, everybody's feeling it. You look at the stores and you can't find what you're looking for, or you're paying more because the supply is low. Because again, the ship with your stuff is sitting just off sitting off just the west coast a little bit. So it's it sucks, and there's no one answer. There's no one answer for it. There's because again, it's several things that go into the problem. I scratch my head sometimes too, like how do we get this squared away? But again, I end up just drawing straws. And if you let the American Association of Railroads tell it, volume is still up on a railroad as far as cars and the ordering of cars and things like that. But they don't talk much about how, what the issue, not necessarily what the issue is, but just how do we solve it? I don't. Again, I don't know how you how you really deal with it. How ease this congestion.
Bro,
Maybe I will say this, and I didn't mean to cut you off, man.
No, you good.
I will say this. The only other thing I could think of, and again, I'm no expert on ships and barges and where they can load and unload and everything like that. Even though I've been in a few ports to see and understand it a little bit, but maybe I don't know. Maybe something like opening up other ports and facilities, and I know that can't be done as fast as I am saying it. But I'm just saying, if we're facing this problem now, maybe a way of in the future of easing it is just maybe we open, other ports, so that ships can unload containers quicker, or just ease the burden off of, let's say, ports in California, if that makes sense, man.
Bro, it's several things I want to touch on that you kind of brought up. First off, California, ports of LA, ports of Los Angeles. They aren't the problem. They are just they aren't the problem. The problem is you don't have enough truck drivers. Our facilities aren't designed to move the amount of volume that we're seeing. Let's just be honest. The ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach are huge, and they still aren't designed to handle this amount of traffic. You couple that with a labor shortage. You couple that with the ability to freely move freight. I was just watching a news story, and they're talking about how bad the air quality is in the Long Beach and Los Angeles area with all of the idling ships, all of the idling trucks, and all of and one thing that shocked me, which I'll be honest to God, I did not know this until I heard about the Biden administration talking about they were extending the port hours in Los Angeles. And I was like, come again? I said, so we don't run these ports 24/7? And it absolutely blew my mind that with all of this traffic going on, we're gonna go over on this subject. But with all of this traffic and all of this congestion, that we're not running 24 hours. And I'm just like, well, that's a problem. And it's a couple things, a couple other points I want to make. When you talk about the investment in the ports and opening up new avenues, this port, the tunnel expansion at the Port of Baltimore has been in the works for guess how long? At least 20 to 25 years. At least. That's just going back from when I was working at 59th Street, and we built the Baltimore train. And that was back in the year 2001. So that issue was already known. So here it is, 2021. And like I said, I'm not claiming to be the one that identified the problem. Everybody knew that this has been a problem with Baltimore. But here it is, 2021, we still don't have this done. And then you look at, like say, you look at Long Beach, LA, a lot of that traffic, in order to even get on the trains, that's not happening dockside. They have to truck it from the ports to different intermodal facilities within the Los Angeles basin area. So it's not even dockside dropping, And so to me, it's like, why are our systems set up this way? We're set up for failure. And then on top of that, even when you look at the fact that we truck so much stuff just to get onto the trains, when you look at that, you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. You got trains that go right into but then it just absolutely just looks like you look at the systems that are in place, the infrastructure that's in place. At some point, there has to be a big plan put together to make this work seamlessly. It's not in place. It's not in place at all. Every process is cumbersome. You got to wait on the ship to get in. When the ship get in, then you got to wait on it to drop it. Then you got to find the container. Then you got to truck the container to go put it on rail. Then the rail got to load it on. That is a cumbersome process. we got to start thinking outside of the box in this, because I don't know how many people in the transport, you've seen the studies. They've always talked about in the year 2040 or the year 2050, we're going to have exponential amount of container traffic and growth. Well, what we're witnessing right now is that study, that forecast coming to fruition. And we've been knowing this. I'm trying to, one study I believe came out was probably the early 2000s, then they revised it in 2010. It's like, we've known this is coming, but we've been sitting on our hands and have not done anything remotely closely to being able to handle this traffic. So nobody knew what was going to be the genesis of spur this boom. We had no idea that the e-commerce was going to jump as a result of this pandemic. But what we did know was that something was going to spur it. And we knew that this amount of volume was going to be coming. It's been forecast, it's been predicted, it's coming to fruition. So what are we going to do about it? We can't go the traditional ways of trying to solve stuff. I came up with a concept. I don't know if I want to put it out there because somebody's gonna steal my idea, and I'm gonna be highly pissed if they do. But the thing is it's like get the stuff and move it. Move it out of LA. Get it on the train, move it out of LA, and then sort it out of there. That way, the throughput in LA and Long Beach can keep moving. We should have 12,000 foot double stack trains waiting. Drop them containers, get them on there, get them the hell out of there, and we can keep it moving. We can keep cycling. Because what it's also doing is damaging our exports. We got containers because it's a very tight supply market where the inbound containers have to be reloaded for outbound exports. So we're killing our own exports operating this way. So what are we going to do? We got to think differently. Like, this isn't the 1980s and 1990s double stack volumes. It's not. And it's not going away. We're gonna mess around. We're gonna have ships lined up from Shanghai, from LA to Shanghai. They ain't gonna even leave the ports in Shanghai. And then guess what that does? It drags down everybody else's throughput, which in turn reduces our supply, which in turn raises prices on everything. You know, prior to the pandemic, I think it was something like maybe $1,300 or $1,400 to move a container from China to LA. That cost has gone up to $21,000 a container or more for a spot rate. When you add that, who do you think is paying for almost 20-fold increase in container in shipping costs? The consumers are. We're paying for that. So when you're looking at all this, everybody says, "Oh, the inflation." Yeah, inflation is being highly spurned by the shipping rates. The customers are paying for that. The manufacturers and the wholesalers, they're going to pass that straight on us, and that's what they've done. That's why the cost of electronics has gone up tremendously. That's why the cost of everything that we import has gone up so much. And we import everything. This is a history lesson. People always want to talk about the trade imbalance. America has always historically been a trade deficit. From the start of the goddamn country. America has always consumed more than they can produce. That's historical. So people always, the trade deficit, we fight with China. China just giving us what we need. Just to simplify, now I know it's a lot of other, it could get a whole lot more nuance, but people are supplying what America needs. They always have. We've never been able to produce everything that we need to consume. Never. I said, this goes back to the 1700s. We've always been importing, whether it was spices from China, whether it was, silk or whatever, whether it was different agricultural items from Spain, whether it was different things from, we've always been an importer. We have. We can't onshore all of that. So if we know we can't onshore it, we dang sure better be able to handle it when it's coming in. So that's my take on the supply chain woes. I could talk about this for a whole nother 2 hours, but I digress. We'll move on.
Hey, it sounds like it. And thanks for taking us to school, man.
No problem, man. But well, I guess going on to the next topic is probably going to be pretty good, because now we're going to talk about some of the supply chain solutions we can have. So with all that stuff we just talked about, what are your take on the supply chain solutions that we can have? Like, just some of the stuff I just laid out. What is your response? What are your thoughts on some of the things that I kind of mentioned there in my what I call my supply chain rant?
Hey man, I was waiting for you to put up a little whiteboard and
get my Katie Porter on.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, you said something that I don't think a lot of people, unless you're in the trade, really understood from a basic level, is that we import so much. And everybody asks the question, like, what do we export? Like, but that's not the question. And like you said, I think you hit the nail on the head, honestly, man. When you talk about if we're going to be the biggest importers, then we need to be prepared for that. And I just think, and the whole infrastructure will be coming up soon and things like that when we start discussing that. But I just, it makes you scratch your head, because you're just like, how is nobody thinking of solutions to these problems that just seem so out of date? You know what I mean? Like, if at the highest level that we're lacking, we're the biggest consumer in imports. Why have we not had expansion projects where we can, as fast as it come in, we can get it off and get new stuff on and send that ship right back out? Like, how are we this behind for a country that we call the greatest nation in the world? How are we so, it just seems like out of date, man. Like with how we do things, with how we get things done, man. And I mean, I know that's not a solution, but I mean, it just makes your head explode, man. Like, how do we get here? Without nobody. And I mean, we have all the models that tell us, hey, you're gonna need this, you're gonna around this time, and yet we still sit here, with our hands in our pockets, trying to figure out what just happened. And I just never understood that. Is it an infra? I have to throw the question back at you, because I'm just like, is it an infrastructure issue? You mentioned manpower. We know manpower is an issue, but we also know that we have technology that kind of takes, the manpower portion. I'm gonna go into that, because that's a very good point. So it's just we have the technology now to where certain parts of the manpower is not needed as much, where we can concentrate the manpower in an area that it's really needed on, and so I just, if you walk around some of the ports, you see some of the vehicles moving around by themselves. So I mean, I'm dumbfounded as just how we actually can solve that issue of just getting, and again, I'm starting to think maybe, we need more ports that could just take on the extra burden, off of, some of the ports in California. It just, maybe that's just one solution that will solve a lot of this. Again, it ain't gonna happen no time soon, of course, but I mean, I hope that people who are paid to do this are already starting to think of that.
Well, that's a good point, well, let's talk about two things here. I'm gonna jot this down so I don't forget it. We talk about the manpower, and we talk about additional ports. So I'm gonna touch on those two things. Let's start first. Let's first start with the additional ports, because I believe in the last last 20 years, we've seen some major developments, in particular with the East Coast ports. You've seen Savannah, Georgia. You've seen Charleston. You've seen Wilmington, North Carolina. You've seen Norfolk, Virginia. You've seen all of the Port Authority ports up in New York. Everybody has been expanding, which is good, which can help take some of that burden off of the West Coast ports of, Portland, Long Beach, Oakland, SeaTac, Seattle, Tacoma, for who don't know the acronyms. We've seen those, and we've actually seen ports, even New Orleans, they've all offered to take on additional capacity where those ships can fit at. Because a lot of those ships sitting out there on the anchored outside of Port of Long Beach and Los Angeles, they can't fit in some of these ports, like in particular New Orleans. New Orleans is a very hustling. I spent about this time last year, I was down there on the Mississippi River and was watching container ships, zoom up and down the Mississippi River, heading to that port. And the thing is that we have the ports, but we don't have quite the investment that we need. Savannah has done Savannah and Charleston have done a tremendous job of expanding their ports. Matter of fact, I believe it was Savannah or of Charleston that just right as all of this stuff was going on, they opened up a whole new port berth that they've increased their capacity to, help take on this additional traffic. But guess what? All of these ports are congested too, just that quick. So when you start looking at the actual inlets of the inbound shipments, okay, the ports are expanding, but they are reaching capacity pretty quickly too. So what's the solution to that? The solution to that is, how do we move it out of the ports to a distribution network where we can start getting them to where they need to be? Because trust me, you don't want to send a port that let's just take an example. You don't want to take a container that come into South Carolina that's destined to South Carolina, ending up in Chicago or Memphis, just to sort it out. However, if you got a container coming in to South Carolina that's destined for Iowa, why is it pilling around in South Carolina? Why don't we move that, get the stuff that needs to get out of there, get it out of there. But the problem is, it's two things. It's the capacity, it's the operating practices of the railroads, and then it's the driver shortages of trucking. So now you couple all of that with stuck containers. I get the JOC, the Journal of I can't remember the exact name of it, but the JOC, and they were talking about how they're raising the storage charges or the tariffs on containers not moving within a certain amount of time. Well, how can you move the containers if you don't have truck drivers? So the companies so now guess what that does? That drives the cost of the shipping up. Guess what that does? That drives the price of consumer goods up again. So we're looking at all these issues, and they're piggybacking on top of each other, because in a lot of these aspects of this stuff, we literally cannot move all of this traffic. We literally don't have the manpower to do it. I had an interesting discussion on LinkedIn with a gentleman that works for the Union Pacific and their intermodal, as I brought up a point about were the railroads responsible for what was the railroad's role in the supply chain issues? And he brought up a couple points that I hadn't thought about. He said, look, we can only move a container so far. He said, but if there's no one to pick it up, if there's no warehouse to offload it to, if there's people at the warehouse that can't unload it, he said, everybody looks at us, but what are we supposed to do? Because speaking of the UP, they ended up they had shut down their Global 3 facility in Rochelle, Illinois. It's been reopened. Norfolk Southern has reopened a terminal they had in Pennsylvania, They shuttered it in, I want to say 2019. They just reopened it to handle the additional container volume. So when you look at the railroad, it's not all the railroad's fault. This is why I talk about it needs to be a network. It's a network issue. It's a logistics system issue. We can't look at every aspect like we used to in the 1950s and 60s as competition. Everybody has their role in moving these different products and in our supply chain. There's different links to it. So in order to make these links work, everything has to work together. It should be working together, but it's not. And it's a lot of that. It has to do with the old school way of thinking. A lot of it has to do with once again, manpower issues, cost issues. So when you look at it, when you look at the big picture of things, this isn't a one-stop. You fix this and everything else works. It's not that problem. It's much more complicated, but it's actually much more simpler. Let every role, every part of the transportation and logistics network, they have something that is their strength. Let them put them in a position to operate at their strengths. Railroads strength is moving a lot of stuff long distances. Do that. Trucks, their strong point is last mile. Get it off the train or get it off the dock or whatever. The last mile, delivering it that last mile. Why can't we coordinate our system and our logistics and our infrastructure to let each one of those modes do what they do? Air freight. Air freight is good for smaller parcels that's very time sensitive. Let everybody do what they do well, but we can't do that, one, because of our infrastructure. Even if you had the correct number of truck drivers needed, they're going to sit in traffic in major metropolitan areas because we don't have the capacity to handle, or we don't have the ability to even we haven't even thought of different ways to move traffic in certain areas. So even if you had the manpower, then you run into you don't have the capacity to move all of this traffic. So in those aspects of it, those where you say we need to generate solutions, I totally agree. But we can't look at what's going on now for the future of our supply chain, our logistics network. You can't look at it the way you did 10 years ago. Hell, even 5 years ago, you can't look at it the same way. So much stuff has changed. So much stuff has changed that we have to be thinking and looking at new ways to do that. And how are we going to do that? I'll tell you how we're going to do that. The government's got to invest in it. We just talked about the Port of Baltimore getting a double stack clearance. We talked about 20-something years it's been. We gotta expedite these projects. There's no reason these projects should be sitting on a freaking whiteboard or sitting in a drawer or waiting on funding. We identify the problem. Let's provide the solution. Yes, we got to look out for the environment. Trust me, but the way that we bog down our own processes, this is why this is the root cause of all of this. Because capacity could have been added, money should have been invested in X, Y, and Z, but it hasn't been. And even when we look at these infrastructure bills, which will be our next topic after the break, we keep getting in our own way of providing solutions. We're investing in the wrong areas. We're literally codifying ourselves, cuddling ourselves, and saying, well, we can't do anything. Why? Why can't we do anything? Is it that you're saying we can't do anything, or you don't want to do anything because you don't think it's a concern? But when you look at everything, it should be everybody's concern. When the cost of milk that went up in the last year, it probably went up $2. That's a freaking problem, and that's a problem not just for me. That's a problem for everybody. But when you don't frame it that way, then we allow certain things to continue to persist, and then we never solve a problem. We'll come up with more problems. For every problem, every challenge, there's a solution. It's just whether or not you're gonna do it and put the effort in to do it. We can figure this out. We got smart people out here. You got two of them sitting right here doing this podcast. We can figure this out. But the fact of the matter is we too many times we're not we're not even looking at people. We're not looking at at what people can bring and the different insights that they have to solve these problems. Because I'm gonna tell you, it ain't gonna get no better unless we start doing the right things when it comes to this. And when you talk about the manpower, look, people don't want to go to work, and this is not me. I want people to have jobs. But when people don't want to go to work and we have these issues and there's jobs open and we can't get enough people to fill jobs to get stuff done, y'all don't say nothing when it becomes iRobot and we start having robots and automated stuff taking jobs, because in the reality, automation can kill more jobs than anything. People don't talk about that though. They don't want to talk about that. But this is ushering in a whole new wave of automation, because we literally don't have the people to take care of these things we need them to take care of, to function as a society. So that's my soliloquy on that. But yeah, those are the points, man. Those are the points. And it's just, I mean, you got any other thoughts on it?
No, man. Again, man, you are way on top of that, a lot more than I am. So, I mean, again, I learned from you on this topic, especially because, you are, your feet are definitely in the trenches with the solutions on this, man, because I rack my brain. I mean, I could figure a couple of things out, but I mean, your solutions to this, man, was, when we talked about it months back, man, it was just like, yeah, I could definitely see that. I could definitely understand why. So
man, I mean, Jemayne, we gotta think outside the box, man. We in the 21st century. I'm still mad I ain't got my damn moving sidewalk shit. That was when I was growing up, everybody was talking about we was gonna have moving sidewalks. Only time I see them is when I go through O'Hare Airport in Chicago. And I was supposed to have that. I was supposed to be able to hop on my sidewalk and go to CVS without getting in the car. And I still ain't got that, so I'm still upset about that. So, we got. Well, yeah, I'm a little salty about that because I ain't got my stuff yet. But you know what I'm saying. So, look, the thing we gotta think bigger, man. We gotta think bigger. A friend of mine we was having a conversation, and one thing that kept coming up was dream bigger. As Americans, we gotta dream bigger, man. We can't be content with just, oh, we're the greatest country in the world. Well, show it. We need to show it, and to solve these issues that we're talking about, we need to show it. We need to dream bigger. We need to get this stuff done. And I'm not just talking about catchwords but I mean, we need to actually get shovels in the ground, decision makers in the room, and figure this out. Because at the end of the day, when the decision makers are sitting there on their yachts and everything else, and the country's burning down, yeah, they're gonna have some responsibility for that. And the sad truth, the sad fact of the matter is that we have good problem. I ain't gonna say problem solvers. We have good solution creators available. We just gotta access them. We got to get out this rut. You can give me 10,000 reasons why we can't, but give me one reason why we can.
Yeah.
So that's what we need to do. Dream bigger and get this stuff done, because I'm telling you, this is people worried about this Christmas. I had an episode last Christmas when we were discussing this last December, right before Christmas. And I was discussing the congestion at the port of Long Beach in Los Angeles and the ripple effect it was having in Chicago. Guess what? A year later, it's worse. So it's not, you know what I'm saying? It's not, this isn't just conjecture. I actually bought this up before. We bought this up, and it's just simply we can't keep piddling around. These problems are here. What are we gonna do to solve them? What are we gonna do to correct them? They're not gonna correct themselves, period.
Definitely not.
So, that's our first section. I might have to take a break because I've been talking too dang much. But we're going to take a break. We're going to take a short break here. We will be coming back with 2 more topics to wrap up the show. But as of now, let's take a break and hear from our sponsors.
Diverging Clear is sponsored by EME Rail Solutions LLC. We don't own rail cars, locomotives, or tracks, but if you do, we provide cutting-edge solutions to maximize your assets. Visit us at emerail.net to learn more. Diverging Clear is also brought to you by Three Kings Freight Brokerage LLC. Visit threekingsfreightbrokeragellc.com to learn more about their services.
Well, this concludes part 1 of the bonus episode of the Diverging Clear podcast. Me and Jemayne will drop part 2 of the bonus episode later this week, where we will break down the 2 infrastructure bills that seem to be sitting in purgatory up on Capitol Hill. And we will also close out the bonus episode by discussing the art and science of derailment investigations. Thank you again for tuning in to the Diverging Clear podcast. Don't forget to click that subscribe and like button on YouTube. And if you're listening to the audio version on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, Anchor, or any of the other platforms that you listen to your podcasts on, don't forget to subscribe to the Diverging Clear podcast. You can also send comments or feedback to divergingclearpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at divergingclear1, Instagram at diverging_clear_podcast, and on Facebook. Gotta run. Have a good day. Stay safe out there. We'll talk to you soon.